You need somebody. You need me on that wall, okay? Listen to me. I am the kind of person who looked up the other day how to start my own HOA, to patrol the neighborhood, to police other people, to stop people like you from putting up a 17-foot-tall skeleton in their yard, leaving it there year-round and just dressing it seasonally the way that one of my neighbors in my neighborhood does. The thing, if I was a worse person, and I'm pretty close, but if I was a worse person, I would take the chainsaw. It's honestly the only power tool that I know how to operate. I would take the chainsaw and I would just go at the legs of this skeleton. If I was a bad person, instead of just, plotting this neighbor of mine's demise secretly with secret HOAs and things like that.
Which is why we are truly two opposite elves on this show, because if I had to rank all of my fatal flaws, I think one of the highest ranked fatal flaws for me is I have a problem with people pretending to have authority that don't. That's just at my core. So to tie it back to Christmas years ago, we had a group of friends, and we were flash mobbing all over the place. I've told you this. We flash mobbed, right? But one of the places we flash mobbed, we just started singing, "Oh, we need a little Christmas," right in the middle of a mall. We were right in the middle of a mall. And a mall cop came up to me like he was going to do something about it. And my nature in that moment is like, okay, what exactly do you think you're going to do? Like, I am that type. I've always been that type of person. And when somebody gets mad and gets in my face,
respect Paul Blart, though, Fitz.
Paul, oh yeah. Look, I would eat his lunch because I would just sit there and say, okay, fatty, what do you think? What authority, big boy, do you think you have to actually stop anything that's
so reductive?
Right?
It's a completely hypothetical argument with Paul Blart happening.
Oh man, I would just absolutely house him. He would have nothing. And the funny thing is, yeah, like as we get older, the number of times there's conflict and somebody, every time I see it on a social media video where somebody's in somebody's face like, I'm gonna kick your ass. It's like, okay, let's play this out. How do you think this is going to go? What do you think is going to happen? That's how I'm natured. If you came up with an HOA, you know what I'd do the next day? I'd go buy every single neighbor a bigger skeleton, and I'd buy outfits for each holiday just to put them on, and then I'd get one for mine that's a sign, and the sign would just have a big old buck, a massive buck on it, and it would just say buck and then the letter U after it, and it would be just for you. So every time you drove by it, you could see Buck U from my 12-foot giant skeleton, only because you told me I couldn't have one.
Gotta respect
I've just been Paul Blarted. I've just had my it's because it's the HOA is just I've been Blarted. Yeah. Oh no!
Can we make
it feels
that
like the Commanders are currently.
I just got
a
blarted.
show phrase. Okay, the Commanders are currently getting blarted by the Eagles at this point in time. Josh Johnson is 1 for 4 for 20 yards and a pick. He's not been in long enough to throw an interception. Apparently, he already has an interception. It's just bad.
39-year-old Josh Johnson out there doing the thing. Marcus Mariota had to leave the game. This game is 21-10. It was 10-7 at the half, but the Eagles are pulling away in the second half. That's fine. We're about to get the kickoff of another slaughter. Like, right? I think we can all
slaughter.
Blanting. Is that what we want to call it? James Madison. That's the game I was talking about. JMU versus Oregon.
I thought you were talking about the Packers and the Bears. I was like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. Oh, let's go to the Packers and the Bears because JMU Oregon's going to be an absolute bloodbath. Who cares? Packers, Bears. Who you got? Why?
I'm taking the Bears again.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm genuinely excited about that.
Okay, why did you want to fight?
I loved it. I love this take from you. I want to hear more. I was excited you're taking the Bears.
I don't feel great about Caleb Williams, but the beauty of the Bears is kind of what we've talked about with the Seahawks and kind of what we mentioned with the Rams is that I don't have to feel great about Caleb Williams because they run the absolute hell out of the football. Like, they're just a very good offense. They're good enough around a quarterback that's still got a learning curve to get the job done. And they've got a defensive coordinator in Dennis Allen who's getting the most out of them. They're turning the ball over at an exorbitant rate. I haven't checked the interception leaders lately, but Titans legend Kevin Byard still getting the job done at an advanced age. Makes me very, very happy in Chicago. No, I think the Bears got it. I'm with what the Packers have, and I was watching the Fox pregame at this point in time. They're going to come into this game with a limited amount of weapons that they've had, and they've done a good job. I think Matt LaFleur deserves a lot of credit for getting as much out of this unit as I think that any reasonable coach would be able to do with a lot of, I mean, how would you describe the collection of Packers skill position players? Like wide receivers, and let's just keep it to wide receivers, okay? So the tight end Tucker Kraft, he's hurt. They're a different offense without him. Josh Jacobs, a good running back. He makes a big difference for them. But just the wide receivers, like I feel like people assume because of the draft capital that's been spent on the lot of them, that they are a better group of wide receivers, a more consistent group of wide receivers than they actually are. When in reality, I think I'm very disappointed.
And hi again, everybody. This is Dan Avone along with you. I will have you for the next half hour before we hand things over to the voice of the Golden State Warriors, that being Tim Roy. As Tim Roy, of course, will have the call and the pregame show tip beginning at 5:30. The Warriors looking to bounce back as the home and home continues. The Warriors losing by a digit in a frustrating contest, 99-98. That was played out in the Valley of the Sun, a game that we have been talking about and will continue to talk about throughout today's pregame show, and the Warriors with an opportunity for redemption against the very same team coming up once again later this evening. A reminder, Warriors Live is presented by Xfinity. Stream sports from the best seat in the house with Xfinity. Bring on the good stuff. We want to really quickly get you to the injury report for tonight's contest. Of course, I think you know about Al Horford. Horford continues to be out with that sciatica nerve irritation, something that has plagued him for about a month. Horford, for the most part, let's face it, he has been a virtual no-show for the Warriors. However, you would think that with still a lot of basketball left, a lot of meat on that bone, that Al Horford will rear his head at some point, and the 40-year-old will be able to contribute for a Warriors team that certainly can use that veteran guile and, more importantly, just a big body in the middle to help out the likes of a team with Quentin Post and company that are lacking at the center position. Seth Curry also out, left glute. He continues to sit, the brother of one Steph Curry. Seth, and a shooting which we saw briefly, a glimpse of on that recent road trip, but Seth will not be available for today's game. And then Jonathan Kuminga, as the JK turns. Jonathan Kuminga out, illness. He was listed as questionable, will not play tonight, as that very weird relationship with Jonathan Kuminga and the Golden State Warriors continues. Kuminga, of course, who was DNP'd for a good portion of the last 2 weeks, saw some action against the Phoenix Suns. Less than 10 minutes, about 9 or 10 minutes of the contest. Again, was not much of a factor. All the talk, we did Warriors Live earlier today, and all the conjecture about where it is that he is going to land. Will they trade him? Will they potentially hold on to him? What's next for Jonathan Kuminga? But this sort of what is going from the drama over the offseason of his contract. What is it that the Warriors are going to do? Are they going to trade him? The drama has now just simply moved into a very weird space as it relates to Jonathan Kuminga and the relationship with one Steve Kerr. I think we can all sort of arrive at this sort of educated guess that Steve Kerr just simply does not view him right now as a guy that fits in to whatever it is that Steve Kerr is looking to get out of his basketball team. And I think it's pretty obvious that there is not the buy-in defensively. I don't think Steve Kerr sees that from JK. And offensively, you can see that Jonathan Kuminga is overthinking, trying to get into a system that has always been sort of awkward for him. And right now, it's just in his head, as it has been on and off in this bizarre relationship over the last 5 years for the number 7 pick in the 2021 draft some 5 years ago. And just when you thought that there would be some growth, especially after an encouraging start to this campaign, we're right back where we were throughout the course of the last 4 years. In the doghouse, plays well, out of the doghouse, DMP'd, and the song and dance continues with Jonathan Kuminga. You would think at least for another month and a half. January 15th is the earliest that they can deal him. But Jonathan Kuminga, once again, on the injury report, will not be available for tonight's contest. Take it to the bank prediction. Fremont full-service banking. No compromises. Oh, by the way, today's injury report is brought to you by Boxer & Gerson, Northern California's premier workers' compensation law firm, helping injured workers get their lives back for over 40 years. For more info, visit boxerlaw.com. Now we get into Take It to the Bank prediction. Fremont Bank, full service banking, no compromises. Well, this is a rather easy one, but I think Steph Curry will be bouncing back and be more Steph Curry-esque tonight. Curry, who had somewhat of an off night, 15 points. He was, I believe, a minus 15. Not a good performance, comparatively speaking, especially when you think about what Curry was able to do over the last week and single-handedly carrying this team despite the losses. But 15 points, again, despite the fact that he had 4 days off, it was a very atypical performance from Steph Curry. And I think, at least I look for him to bounce back. My prediction is that Steph Curry will have more familiar type Steph Curry numbers, especially returning on his home floor, where you look for him to score somewhere between 25 to 35 points in pacing the Golden State Warriors, and they certainly can use it. So the Warriors tonight, as I mentioned, after losing by a digit, 99-98 to the Phoenix Suns, have lost some 3 consecutive games. All this after what was an encouraging road trip, a road trip in which they nearly beat Philadelphia, should have beat Philadelphia, whatever that means. It was a loss is a loss, but if you happen to see the game, you know that they certainly had their opportunities toward the closing moments. And then the surprise of surprises, they beat the Cleveland Cavaliers, although the Cavaliers certainly have their own difficulties and their own problems. What a difference a year makes, as the Cavaliers were the toast of the Eastern Conference. At one point, the toast of the NBA, and Kenny Atkins was thought of as a surefire coach of the year, and everybody talked about how, you know, he certainly had done well for himself after being the assistant and sitting on the bench for the Warriors, getting his opportunity with the Cavs, and look at him now. Well, the Cleveland Cavaliers, albeit they have dealt with injuries, but I think Darius Garland, I don't know if he'll ever be healthy. That's a Cleveland Cavalier team that is a bit of a head scratch, as they have not been good this year. Anyways, the Warriors beat the Cleveland Cavaliers and then were able to take, in a back-to-back, able to take care of the Chicago Bulls. That was the Pat Spencer little run there, the little insanity run, if you will. Pat Spencer, once again, not available for tonight's contest. But you thought that maybe the Warriors had found something in this sort of backup to the backup roles. I mean, you were talking about Guy Santos, you're talking about Will Richard, and of course Pat Spencer and company, all contributing. However, that has faded quickly. With the return of Steph Curry and a healthy Golden State Warrior team, they have not been effective. Once again, losing 3 consecutive games, including the last contest to that of the Phoenix Suns. Somebody that we had talked about earlier today, and somebody that certainly is accustomed to being at the eye of the storm, whether that being good or bad, when we're doing Warriors Live, Warriors Talk here on Sports Talk Radio at 95.7 The Game, or doing a post-game show. It's oftentimes centered around, at least he'll get mentioned more than once, and that's Draymond Green. And Draymond Green, he concluded one of his worst performances as a Golden State Warrior, where he turned the ball over some 5 times. As a team, the Warriors turned it over collectively 20 times, which led to 30 points. You lose by a digit, and you turn it over 20 times, which immediately led to some 30 points. And you don't have to be a coach or a mathematician to sort of figure out what went wrong. But Draymond, again, as we had talked about earlier today, very despondent and sort of uncharacteristic of the verbose, the outspoken Draymond Green, who, if nothing else, win or lose, is never a loss for words. But Draymond Green was very monosyllabic. You can look it up. It's your word of the day. But he was somebody that just wanted to get the hell out of there. And obviously, it was not a good performance on the part of Draymond Green. The turnovers, not only in the game against the Phoenix Suns, but against Portland, high number of turnovers, not efficient play on the part of Draymond Green. I had mentioned this, and again, this is what happens when you when you want to talk about what the locker room's like or whether this team is getting along, it's all, we're just guessing here. It's all conjecture because we have no idea unless, of course, you're in that locker room, and we are not. But it just looks as though if we're to use body language for a team that had 4 days off, and by the way, you never get 4 days off unless it's the All-Star break. But the Warriors, who had played so many games in this condensed version of the beginning of the season, led the NBA in back-to-backs, all this for a team that is amongst, if not the oldest now in the NBA. We always talk about the battle of attrition, load management, and it was pointed at not necessarily as an excuse, but something that you could say, well, listen, here comes the easy part of the schedule where things lighten up a bit in terms of the opposing teams, but also you're going to get some days off in between games. But that game against the Phoenix Suns, if you were to just look at the lethargy, the lack of energy on the part of a well-rested Golden State Warrior team, one would have to ask, well, what's going on? And I can just tell you from experience, as a fan, as a guy sitting on a couch, professionally watching sports, never being in a locker room at the professional level, if you watch enough sports, both whether it's MLB, the NFL, or certainly in the NBA, and you see that, more often than not, there's something internally amiss. There's usually something that's not privy to our eyeballs that's at work. And if there's one thing about the Warriors throughout this remarkable Steve Kerr run, which has gone on for more than a decade, and of course Steph Curry and Draymond Green, yes, there have been outbreaks, certainly Draymond Green and Jordan Poole, but that's the outlier. My point is that they have always got the locker room correct. What happens in that locker room with the Golden State Warriors, oftentimes, and I'm a firm believer of this, you take that out onto the field, you take that out on the hardwood, and the Warriors, part of their success throughout the years is that they get along. They've always been able to internally get that right. Because we know what it can look like when you're on the other side of that fence. And I think that I go there because, and I don't know that things are getting carcinogenic, if you will. They're getting cancerous with the Golden State Warriors. But it just seems as though there might be some internal bickering that we're not aware of. Jordan Poole is far removed, so who are the culprits? I mean, I have an idea when you think about the histrionics of one Jimmy Butler, but I'm not going there. I'm just saying something seems to be a little bit off with his basketball team. And the reason why I underline that, because the team they're taking on tonight, the Phoenix Suns, are the polar opposite. When you think about the Phoenix Suns of a year ago, that was a team that clearly had issues. That was a team that was just put together with high salaries, an absolute mess. Budenholzer fired as the head coach, out as Durant. They refaced that entire team. Bradley Beal, see you later. That was an absolute mistake. DeAndre Ayton was dropped the year before. They have refaced that basketball team. And say what you will about the Phoenix Suns. Look, their roster shouldn't scare anybody. I mean, aside from Devin Booker, the Warriors should be able, any team, a lot of teams, I should say, should be able to match up and be better than that of the Phoenix Suns. So why the turnaround for a team that finished 10 games under 500 a year ago and missed the playoffs as well as the play-in? And that was with Kevin Durant and with Devin Booker and all those stars. What happened? Well, you changed the energy. You changed the locker room. And you look at the Phoenix Suns now, and it's Colin Gillespie. It's a guy that's all about hustle. It's about a guy much like that of Brandon Pajemski. You've heard these phrases applied to him on more than one occasion, making the right basketball plays. And the other guy that, and I know that Dylan Brooks can be that guy and public enemy number one, but to a man, just about every team he goes to, teammates like this guy. He is good for locker room. You may hate him from the opposing bench, but I think Dylan Brooks has single-handedly changed the energy of that of the Phoenix Suns. This is a team now that is amongst the league leaders in steals. It's a team now that focuses on defense. It's a team now that does all the little things, that scraps and gets on the floor. Who does that sound like? Well, I think it sounds like their new leader, one Dylan Brooks. Look, this team will go as far as Devin Booker takes them. Booker, who came alive with 23 of his 25 points in the second half in that victory for the Phoenix Suns against the Warriors the other night on Thursday, in which you knew it was a matter of time, the proverbial powder keg, before Devin Booker went off and was able to do his thing. But I do believe that it's one Dylan Brooks that has really changed the attitude of this Warrior team. Excuse me, of the Phoenix Suns team. And so that's gone a long way as far as the Phoenix Suns being this revamped team that is sort of unrecognizable. I mean, one of the big surprises this year is clearly Phoenix. Who saw this team having a better record than that of the Warriors at this part of the season? I think when you look at the West, it's the Phoenix Suns that are a bit of a head scratch. How are they going to get done? And then out in the East, it's the Boston Celtics. Like, nobody gave them a chance. They refaced that team, and I think a lot of people felt as it was a rebuild. Their window had closed. And it may have, but at least they're competitive. And Jaylen Brown, man, he ain't nobody's Robin. Like, that dude is balling out. And you think about Jason Tatum potentially coming back. I mean, that is, Derek White is still doing his thing. That's a good basketball team. And that's a surprise out in the East. But to me, out in the West, it is clearly those Phoenix Suns who have been a major, major surprise. Warriors Live is presented by Xfinity. At home or on the go, you'll get the fastest internet to all your devices. The out-of-time game of the night, I'm going to go here. The Portland Trail Blazers and the Sacramento Kings. Why? Well, because not so much the Sacramento. That's a complete mess. But talk about roster construction. They are wrong in just about everything they do in Sacramento, and I think they know it at this point, including getting rid of their head coach Brown, losing Fox. I mean, the list goes on, starting with Therese Halliburton. That's when you have management and ownership who just don't know what the hell you're doing. You end up with dog barf that's called the Sacramento Kings. No, but it's the Portland Trail Blazers. As much as we think it's a foregone conclusion that the Warriors are clearly going to be in the postseason, well, if not the playoffs, I guess we'll settle for the play-in. Well, not so fast. I mean, this is an aging Warrior team, but it's a Warriors team now that has not beaten the Portland Trail Blazers this year. And the Trail Blazers are on their coattails, as are the Dallas Mavericks. And the Mavericks are only going to get better. Cooper Flagg this guy's now a star. Cooper Flagg is, I mean, he's not legal to drink. Cooper Flagg and I'm not making fun of anybody's sort of appearance, but the man still has acne. He's a teenager. He's 19 years of age. And that dude is everything that we heard. He has delivered and then some. You think Wembanyama overexceeded? Take a look at Cooper Flagg. And he's only going to get better with more experience and more reps. I talked about Ryan Nembhard taking the ball out of his hands and now being the point guard of that basketball team. So, listen, this isn't a Dallas Maverick pregame show. I'm just saying, Warrior fans, as much as you want to be in the playoffs and we all want meaningful games for Steph Curry, just take a look at what's going on behind you with the Portland Trail Blazers and the Dallas Mavericks. Now, a lot has to shake out between now and the end of the season. The Warriors are going through a rough patch, and I think it's easy. It's very easy to pile on right now. But the Golden State Warriors need a bounce-back game tonight. They need to end this skid. You're back at home against a team that you just lost to, and it's a very beatable team. That's the Phoenix Suns. And for the most part, you're at full strength. Although Jonathan Kuminga, once again, will not be available. But your big three are ready to go. One thing that I would keep an eye on, and maybe this could be our Crashing the Boards, brought to you by Chilton Auto Body, the Bay Area leader in collision repair. That's Jimmy Butler. Butler, who had the 31 points, very, very effective, very good in that game. Sort of, his points are sort of unassuming. You look up and he's got 31. It's not as though he takes over a game like that of Steph Curry. But he doesn't turn the ball over. It was vintage Jimmy Butler type of basketball. But the reason why I single him out is, can Jimmy Butler do it on 1 day's rest? I know he can do it on 4 days' rest. I certainly know that he's capable of doing it when he has 2 months off as he did a year ago. Like he didn't play the entire season with the Miami Heat, and then he joins the Warriors, and he was this huge revelation. The rest, as they like to say, is history. Is the Warriors just hung on to his coattails, and he almost single-handedly took him to the semis last year. But can Jimmy Butler, the question with Jimmy Butler, now that he gets on the wrong side of 35, is can you do it throughout the demands of an NBA season where you don't have 4 days off? It's every other day, or it's 2 days off. Because this is what happens to older basketball players, is that they lose their legs. While they can do it, they can't do it as frequently. And while Jimmy Butler, back in the day, the Jimmy Butler that we all sort of romanticize about, Jimmy Butler would roll out of bed and give you, 30 and 10 and lead the way and hustle the full 94 feet and give you, 35 minutes of basketball and be vintage Jimmy Butler. He just can't do that anymore. A lot of people feel as though, well, Jimmy Butler picks his spots and sort of load manages and sort of takes the early part of the season off, but much like that of LeBron James, that when it comes to the back half of the season where the games count and you're making a push for the playoffs, you're making a push for the play-in, that's when Jimmy Butler has his energy, has his legs, and is able to do Jimmy Butler type of things. That remains to be seen. Well, the Golden State Warriors tonight against the Phoenix Suns team. Steve Kerr matching wits with a guy by the name of Jordan Ott. Jordan Ott, who has done a very, very, when you talk about the surprise team out of the Western Conference, that's 2 games over the 500 mark, that being the Suns. You got to look at the coach, and Jordan Ott has been that guy, has been the leader that's been able to summon that energy and that chemistry. Really, that's all it is when it comes to the Phoenix Suns. I know we throw around these casual phrases, buy-in, is everybody together? We all on the same string? All that nonsense. But that's the Phoenix Suns, and that's the reason why they're so competitive. And it's Dylan Brooks, who I think is your poster child when it comes to these sort of things. And guys like Colin Gillespie. And, of course, it doesn't hurt to have your go-to guy in Devin Booker. But they certainly don't have 3 stars. We talk about the Warriors, who's going to be their third leading scorer. I guess you can call Dylan Brooks a number 2, but not really, right? On a really good basketball team, is Dylan Brooks your number 2 go-to in terms of scoring? Yeah, I don't necessarily know that that's true. But they have just got it right in just about every facet. So Draymond Green to the 5 turnovers, 20 as a team is certainly something that the Golden State Warriors have to keep an eye on, and it'll be a point of emphasis today. I had talked about, while everybody's pointing a finger and going after Draymond Green, I don't want to point a finger at Steve Kerr because he's a Hall of Famer. I'm a Steve Kerr fan. I'm a supporter, but I believe if you live by that sword, you die by that sword, and he's never been a disciplinarian when it comes to turnovers. And I think that when you're a team that no longer has its legs and cannot run up and down the floor and play that sort of chaotic, shooting threes at a record clip when you were winning titles and playing a different way because simply you're an older basketball team, yet you're still turning it over, just doesn't make a lot of sense. And I just think that Draymond Green is a victim of that environment. I just think that it's been sort of accepted. There's no cause and effect there. It's a culture that has been cultivated by that of Steve Kerr where, well, obviously nobody wants to turn the ball over, and he doesn't permit it, but it's just something that has been happenstance for so long now that I think in a weird way it's sort of accepted. So you can go after Draymond Green, but I think you need more of a disciplined head coach. I'm not saying get rid of Steve Kerr, any nonsense like that, but I think Steve Kerr and the Warriors, as a rule, I think there's just got to be some sort of disciplinary actions, whatever that is, when it comes to turning over the basketball. All right, it's time now for me to turn things over to the voice of the Golden State Warriors, that being Tim Roy. Of course, he'll take you right up until tip-off, that being at 5:30 as the Golden State Warriors take on the Phoenix Suns. All the action is straight ahead, and I'll see you afterwards with a post-game show. So long, everybody.
Ready for your next adventure? Welcome to San Francisco International Airport, your getaway to the world. With over 130 nonstop destinations worldwide, SFO offers seamless travel experiences, stunning art installations, and delicious dining options. Whether you're flying for business or pleasure, our state-of-the-art facilities make your journey smoother than ever. Don't forget to explore our unique shops and local flavors. Pack your bags and take off from San Francisco International Airport. SFO, your adventure awaits.
Looking for lifelong financial guidance? Look no further than Pettinelli Financial Partners, your dedicated financial coaches for every stage of life's journey. Whether you're planning for retirement, starting a family, or buying a home, we're here